Hey guys, I'm Aaron from PhoneDog.com. You know, mid-range Android phones, that's where it's at. If you remember back to Motorola's event a few weeks ago at CTI in San Francisco, it was a bunch of mid-range Android phones announced, one of which was a Motorola Bravo, which is now available on AT&T. It's available for $129.99. You know, it's a pretty decent mid-range device, 800 megahertz processor, 3.7-inch display, Android 2.1 with MOTOBLUR, 3-megapixel camera, feels good in the hand, but the question is it a good Android option? And is it the best Android smartphone after the high-end Captivate? We'll find out in the review. But first, special thanks to our friends at Best Buy Mobile for hooking us up with 2 Motorola Bravos for use on One Palm Bandit giveaway. You know, one thing I like about Best Buy Mobile, don't have to deal with rebates. You walk in, you pay the price, you don't have to worry about messy paperwork, waiting 8 to 10 weeks. You know, it's the holiday season. I already have enough gifts to buy. I'm stressed, you're stressed. Save the time, save the paperwork, go to Best Buy Mobile, you'll get the device for the after rebate price. So that's pretty cool. But enough of that. Motorola Bravo review starts right now. So here's the Motorola Bravo with AT&T, and as I said, it's available now for $129.99 at AT&T retail stores and online. You know, for a mid-range Android device, I'm actually pretty pleased with it. The screen looks good, and overall, it's a pretty nice device. I like the color scheme, the black and silver, and then the chrome edges, and the black kind of matte battery door really make the device look good. And you know, all in all, I think it's a great mid-range device. I would definitely recommend it to people just in terms of design. Now, it's running Android 2.1 with MOTOBLUR, as you can see from that bottom row near where the dock would be. Phone, you know, your app drawer, and in contacts. And it keeps giving me this blur account error, which, because I have this this blur account set up on the flip side as well, it keeps giving me this error saying that it's already active on another device. So if you're wondering what that is, that's what that is. Otherwise, you know, very similar to Android 2.1. The typical blur, or Android 2.1 with blur, except for the AT&T ID at the top, which AT&T opted to keep there in place of where the date is. They flip-flop the date and the network identifier. So one thing you may notice if you're an Android user, that's one thing you may notice right out of the box. But otherwise, you know, I like the design. On the left side, you have your volume rocker. Right side, left side micro USB charging port. Right side volume rocker. It's a little exhausted. What can I say? It's been a long day. 3.5mm headphone jack and power button, and then your camera on the back. 3-megapixel camera without a flash. So micro SD card slot is under the battery, and you do get a micro SD card with the device out of the box. Now let's have a look at the bottom here where the capacitive buttons are. Menu, home, and back capacitive buttons. So you notice there's no search button on this device. And one interesting thing, you notice the lock screen actually looks a lot like a Froyo lock screen with the kind of dark gray icons, gray/blue icons, but it is actually Android 2.1 that this device is running. Out of the box, you get the typical AT&T applications and the typical MOTOBLUR applications. MOTOBLUR accounts, family map, maps, music, navigator, radio, Wi-Fi hotspots. Excuse me. Contacts, camera, typical Android stuff. Email, files, which I've said before and I'll say it again. I love the fact that that's pre-installed on the MOTOBLUR devices because it saves you the time of downloading an app. And yes, I know it only takes 10 seconds to download an app if you have a good connection, but it's nice to see files out of the box. Little things like that. It shows me that they were thinking about what consumers needed. So that's a nice touch there. Mobile banking, quick office, social networking, task manager, which was installed on the Droid Pro as well. The flip side, a couple of the other MOTOBLUR devices. Instead of downloading a task killer like Advanced Task Killer, you have this task manager out of the box, which allows you to do it in-house. So that's a nice touch. VLingo voice, YP mobile, Wear, and things like that. Now this is running MOTOBLUR, as I said, so it does have the customizable widgets, which I like so much. They're a love-hate thing in terms of the widget design. But you'll notice that very kind of boxy widgets, but the cool thing about MOTOBLUR widgets is the ability to change them, or change the size rather, depending on what you want. So you can see this is the exact same widget, but it's 2 different sizes depending on what my mood is. So I can go up here, I can click it, make it like that, and let's click it again, bring it down here. I can expand it out a little bit more. So 2 of the same widget just looks entirely different based on the way I've configured it personally. So outside of the fact that widgets are customizable and widgets kind of give an idea of who you are, you have the ability to change what they look like as well. So you can really make this phone you, which is one thing I really like about MOTOBLUR. You don't get that with Sense, you don't get that with TouchWiz. The app kind of widget rather really plops down on the screen. It's kind of stuck. You can move it around, but you can't change the size. So that's a very nice touch. Now it has 7 home screens like the typical Blur setup, and you can go down through here and migrate through those quickly, or you could do it, one by one, obviously by scrolling through. Now one little funny touch, I pointed this out in the unboxing, but one thing I thought was kind of humorous, on the Verizon blur-enabled devices, you'll notice that the instead of being orange, it's red. So I thought that's pretty kind of how fitting for an AT&T device to have an orange, or to make it orange, whereas on the Verizon devices, it's red. So I thought that was kind of a funny touch. Other than that, it's the typical blur that you're familiar with, be it from the Motorola Droid 2, which is a toned-down version, or the Droid X, to the Defy or the Flip Side, or some of these devices that have the full-blown version of MOTOBLUR. It's very similar across the board in a lot of ways, but let's have a look at the keyboard. This is one of my favorite things about the Motorola devices. Absolutely love that multi-touch QWERTY keyboard that comes on the Droid X, the Droid 2, the Defy, and the Flip Side, and then the Flip Side doesn't have the multi-touch, but this one does as well. So beautiful keyboard, and actually, I'm just showing you here the screen. I'm not sure if the camera does it justice, but as I said, it's a 3.7-inch display, but it's very vibrant. Colors are great, no problems whatsoever there, but absolutely love this keyboard. Hey there. Very easy to type on. Very easy to do it quickly, even though I spelled you wrong. Go back to that. Hey there, how are you doing? Very easy to type on. You said it pretty quickly. The quick brown fox ate the phone dog. No, actually, ate the phone cat. Let's see here, I'm making a lot of errors. Phone cat. So you can see, so it ate our competitor, so all is good. No, I'm just kidding. Hey there, how are you doing? Quick brown fox ate the phone cat. So very quick, very easy to type, and you can do it in landscape mode as well if you prefer the larger keyboard. So overall, very pleased on that front. And the other typical things you'll recognize right out of the box: contacts or people. Go here and you can see typical. Scroll to the left, see the history. Scroll to the right, see the status updates from the social networking mediums, which you can see Old Man Baker, Old Man McTweety already in there. And you can see here's what it looks like. Here's the number, the sample number. You can call or text message directly from contacts, and linked profiles as well if there are any for that person. So very similar. Phone icon is very similar. The phone app rather is very similar as well. Typical buttons. At the bottom you have the add a contact button. So when I dial somebody, I can add it there. See that lights up. The send key, and then the voicemail or the voice commands key as well. Typical buttons there. Dialer, recent, contacts, and favorites. Very similar there. Recents. You can see all calls, missed calls, received calls, outgoing calls. On the topic of messaging, let's take a look at the Gmail app, and you'll notice we've reviewed and covered a lot of the Android 2.2 based devices. This is running Android 2.1, so it's a little bit of a step back in terms of overall Gmail functionality. So we'll do some comparisons between those. You'll notice first of all that you can't add a new account from the top there where it says Old Man McTweety. That's on Android 2.2, and the new Gmail, that's a button you can click. Not a huge deal. You can go down here and click through menu and go to accounts, but still a little bit of a difference there. And then you'll notice the header. These are the two primary differences. That and the header is slightly different as well. It doesn't have the starred, the reply, and then the more, where you can do forward and reply all. And when you scroll down, the header no longer sticks to the top. So, not a huge issue, but and especially for people that aren't used to Android 2.2. But if you're coming down from, let's say, the original Motorola Droid, and you're going to this on AT&T, you're going to notice a difference in the Gmail app. So be aware of that. Otherwise, still very functional, still very easy to use, and all of this syncs together. Or you can configure it through MOTOBLUR, have all of your accounts in one place, and then when you go to messaging, if you have a POP-based email account or something of that nature, it'll appear with text messaging, or you can go directly to the text messaging icon at the bottom and go directly into text messaging from there. Let's take a look at the browser. You can see it's already loaded up on the mobile Yahoo page, but let's have a look at something a little bit more graphically intense, like phonedog.com. Happen to be a fan of that site. I like that guy with the hair, No, I'm just kidding. But you can see it load. Transition effects are reasonably smooth on this. This does not support Flash out of the box since it's Android 2.1. But let's have a look here just to see. And I imagine that without the Flash, the responsiveness will be slightly smoother. Let's see here. You can see pinch to zoom capabilities. A little bit, little laggy, but not too bad at all. Especially for a mid-range 800 megahertz processor and what the specs that this device has. Not bad in the slightest on the pinch to zoom front. Very easy to use. Let's see, tap to zoom in, tap to zoom out. Let's see. So you can see, I mean, there's definitely a stutter, but it's not bad, I think, for people that are first-time smartphone buyers or people that are migrating from a high-end feature phone to this. It's not a huge thing. That said, I mean, there are faster options out there, like Windows Phone 7 and, a couple of the other options out there. So see, yeah, it looks pretty good. So typical web browsing options, new window, bookmarks, windows. You can click here. We can open up a new window. Let's go to, just for example, ESPN.com. And while that's loading, let's go and say we want to go back to PhoneDog. Click on Windows, bring up PhoneDog, and there it is. Other options: refresh, more. You can get into some of the page stuff, clear your cache, do all of the internet-based tasks, save the page, page info, etc., etc. So on that front, it's a very stock Android WebKit browser, but still not bad on the pinch to zoom front, but not the best on the market by any means.